So there's two things that I think we need to clear up here. One is about daytime prompting and taking your child to the toilet too frequently and what that does to the bladder and why it doesn't work. And the other one is around nighttime lifting and how actually the two are very similar. And what is going on here is that we're interrupting and intercepting the natural process that the body needs to go through in order to be successfully dry at night, in order to be dry in the daytime. So in the daytime, loads of people, and this happens a lot at nurseries as well, is that every 20 minutes they'll be like, right, let's go to the toilet, let's go to the potty and do a wee. And what happens then is that you do avoid wee accidents for the most part. What also happens is that you annoy your kid so much that probably within less than a day, I mean, less than a morning even, they're going to start resisting and saying no. So that can lead to other issues. So let's just rewind. Okay, the bladder is like a muscle, like any muscle in the body, and it needs to be filled and emptied and filled and emptied throughout the day to get strong. Okay, so strength to hold it when it's full and strength to empty it properly when you're emptying it. Okay, now if you overprompt your child, their bladder is doing this all day, right? It's not getting properly full. And so the bladder's not getting its exercise. So that's going to mean that if it gets really full, it's more likely to leak, okay? But also what it means is that the bladder is only going to send the message to the brain to say, your bladder's full and you need to go, and you're going to get that sensation of having a full bladder when the bladder is full. And that message is only going to be sent when the muscles are stretched to the point where the message goes up. So if the muscles are only doing this and they're only allowed to do a little bit, then they're never going to get to the point of sending that message. So you are interrupting that natural process, and the bladder is not learning, and your child is not getting that message. Oh, my bladder is full. Oh, that's what this feels like. Oh, that's why I'm going to the potty. Oh, hey, yeah, when I sat on the potty, I did a big wee and it was quite easy to do. What they're getting instead is, you're interrupting me. I don't know why. I'm going to sit on the potty. This is really hard because I don't actually really need a big amount of wee here. So I'm doing it to please you, but pretty soon I'm going to get really pissed off with you for that. I'm not going to want to do it anymore. So I'm not going to do it anymore. And so you just, it's not a helpful strategy, right? So that's one thing that I wanted to make clear. The other one is about nighttime, and it's very similar that at nighttime, the bladder needs to get to the point where if it's going to be full, it needs to get full enough to send the message to the brain so that it wakes you up. And I know that loads of people have this. It's not just me, but I know that sometimes if I've had a big drink at bedtime and I go to bed, then my bladder will wake me up in the night. And sometimes it starts with dreams. You know, I'll have dreams about I'm going to the toilet. I'll have dreams about needing the toilet and not being able to go. And this is my bladder, my brain body connection, the way of saying, oi, you know, wake up and deal with this. And so that happens because the bladder is full and it's sending that signal. And my body has learned, I have learned to wake up when I start getting this sensation, I start getting this message. So if you take your child and lift them at night time, say when you go to bed or whatever, you don't know anyway whether their bladder is going to be full or not. So it's kind of like guesswork, right? But at the same time, because usually parents describe this as their child is quite sleepy, they're not fully awake, they're like a little bit awake, but not really. So what you're doing is like you're kind of teaching them to pee when they're half asleep, and you are the one creating the scenario where they're waking up, right? So instead of their brain naturally waking them up and them learning to get that message and respond to it and wake up to the sensation of a full bladder, they're sort of waking up to maybe peeing. And so in a way, you're making it more likely that they're going to pee the bed because they haven't learned to wake up to the sensation of a full bladder. They've learned up to wake up to weeing or a wet bed, right? And it's a bit, for the bladder, it's the same, right? That unless you drink a big drink of water at bedtime, or unless, for example, you're drinking water all the way through the night, your body is going to produce a lot less urine. So the hormones that your body will naturally provide from birth are going to help your body to make half as much urine in the nighttime as it does in the day. So the combination that keeps children dry at night is not having a big drink at bedtime, not drinking throughout the night, emptying their bladder just before they go to bed, so the bedtime wee, and then also having the, you know, leaving them like and not interrupting that cycle to wake them up. Okay, so that if the bladder does get full, as it will naturally get full towards the morning anyway, then when you wake up in the morning, one of the first things you notice is, I need a wee. And so you have your morning wee. And so the cycle is complete and the child will learn to stay dry at night. There are some really important caveats around that. There are a very small minority of children, and when I say small, I mean less than 5%, who may have a problem in the amount of hormone that they're producing. But this is really important. Just giving them that hormone is shown to be less effective on its own than giving them the hormone plus helping with the skills and the habits and the behaviors and training the brain-body connection to actually work. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, they don't have hormones, we'll just wait till later, or they don't have hormones, so we'll just give them a tablet. That doesn't work for most children. So it's complex. And the best way to go about dealing with nighttime dryness or nighttime wetting is to get the foundations and the basics in place. So partly that means good daytime bladder control, good daytime strength. So the bladder being given the opportunity to fill and empty and fill and empty throughout the day. That is what's going to help the bladder to be strong enough to contain that wee at night. And then the other things we talked about, so not teaching them to pee in their sleep. And finally, one other thing to point out is that if your child is not pooing every day, at least 1 to 3 times a day, not more than 3. Okay, constipation is complicated and really we should have a different word for it. However, if you think your child might be constipated, if you're not sure, check my checklist of the 16 things to think about to work out whether your child might be constipated or not. And believe it or not, this has a huge impact on the ability for your bladder to work effectively. So if your child's bowel is full of poo, or there's a traffic jam of poo in there that's accumulated, it's going to press on the bladder and it's going to make it into like a pancake kind of shape. And that is going to make it harder to send that signal, harder to fill up properly, and harder to hold it. So the number one cause of nighttime wetting is actually underlying untreated constipation. So if you are listening to this and thinking, oh, my kids wet every night, then think about that as well. But again, the recap, don't prompt them more than once an hour in the day because you're going to interfere with that process. And secondly, don't lift them for a sleepy nighttime wee because you're going to do the same thing. And really hope that's been helpful.